Story 1. Younger me just wanted them to be attractive. In my mid-20s, I just wanted them to be kind and bring peace rather than disturb the peace I already have. Story 2. My type then. Hot, intelligent, funny, sexy, olive skin, perfect body, incredible in bed, and many other qualities. My type now, not clinically insane. Story 3. The definition of what I find attractive has become much more inclusive of different body shapes and sizes. Story 4. A girl who spends her weekends drinking heavily is much more attractive when you are in college than when you are in your late 40s. Story 5. When I met my wife, she was literally my dream girl when it came to looks. So my type basically changes with how she looks. She does not believe me, but I do not care. She is gorgeous. Story 6. My type is whatever my wife is. Young and fit, yes. Pregnant? Absolutely. Curvy? No. Back in shape with some of the baby weight curves still? Definitely yes. Story 7. I was neutral on height. Then I dated a 4-foot 10-inch girl and got into petite women. Later, I dated a 5-foot 11-inch girl and got into tall women. I was mostly only attracted to white women. Then I was exposed to attractive women from a variety of ethnicities and found them to be very attractive as well. Story 8. Yes, with enough time, you will start to become very attracted to the body your wife or significant other has, if you were not attracted to it before. Story 9. When I was younger, I watched Underworld and had an immediate celebrity crush on Kate Beckinsale. That became the type I wanted. Dark hair, icy blue eyes, slim, hard edgy exterior waiting to be cracked by the right person. I had quite the imagination. Then, when I dated my now wife, everything changed. My type swiftly changed to blonde, curvy, intelligent, nerdy, and sometimes dorky. I have not looked back since. Story 10. My wife is the type of woman I evolved to fall in love with. I used to be interested in women with no goals. I realized I needed a woman who had goals and the drive to achieve them. Story 11. My type is more trait-specific than looks. Traits have stayed the same, but after being with someone for a few decades, I would say look preferences have changed with maturity, life experiences, and the absence of external factors. Other fathers may chime in on this, but while our wives often see the damage done to their bodies from having children with disdain, generally good men see these marks as signs of what she gave up to bring life into the world with us. A sag, stretch mark, or similar feature suddenly becomes something we appreciate in our spouse, and we love them more for it. Growing up from my single days into parenthood changed a lot about my perception of body likes and dislikes. Additionally, the last time I was single, we were constantly bombarded across music, film, television, radio, print, and the internet about what we should aim for. People who are single now would not be surrounded by as much of that noise and would be freer to decide what physical looks they actually like versus what they are told to like. Story 12. When I was a teenager, I really liked the upbeat popular girls. Now, in my late 20s, I have found that I like women who are very calm and gentle. I can only guess why, but I think it is because I have calmed down quite a bit myself over the years. The smaller things in life make me smile now, and I find joy in those areas. There is no need for adventure or excitement every day, just peace of mind for me. I like a woman who exudes and seeks that same quality. Story 13. As I have gotten older, the type of person I am attracted to has changed as well. A 22-year-old is close to unappealing to me now from a sexual point of view. Living in Houston, I have been exposed to more Asian men, so now I am more attracted to certain types of Asian men, generally the more masculine-looking ones like Filipinos. However, there are clearly some Chinese and Japanese ethnic groups I find very attractive. I just do not know what they are. Story 14. My type was and is large-chested Latina women with full lips. I married a petite Jewish woman who may not actually have full lips. Love does not care about your preferences. Story 15. As I have gotten older, my taste in women has matured as well. At this point, I would not date anyone under 30. I am also less picky about appearance. There are certain preferences I have in that area, but in general, I want a person who is genuine, honest, positive, and intelligent. Some of these qualities did not matter to me 15 years ago. Story 16. I was always interested in alternative goth girls, but I realized I was chasing an aesthetic, not a person. Ironically, my first partner who was goth was chasing the same thing in me. So we both experienced difficulties when we started to change. Story 17. When I first began dealing with women, my type was whatever I could get. After a few years and a few successes, I focused more on aesthetics and beauty, trying to see if I could attract attractive and fashionable women. Eventually, personality became paramount, and my focus shifted to women with similar interests, vibes, and energy. Story 18. When I was younger, I wanted them to be hot and have a swinging body. I still need to be physically attracted, but now I prefer curvy girls. I am more into personality. If she is nice, fun, and intimate, I am probably interested. Story 19. I have always been attracted to thicker, older women. In the past 2 years, I have come to appreciate and recognize the appeal of a petite body. Story 20. I fell in love and my type became my wife. That said, I have always been attracted to nice and calm personalities. I cannot stand drama. The types that I specifically did not like, I still do not like. The key is that something I was kind of neutral about became my top choice. Story 21. Most men do not have the luxury of having a specific type. Most men just hope they can find someone who wants them as much as they want her. Story 22. Really, the only thing that has changed is that I am not attracted to younger women who are 18 to their early 20s. They all look too young, and I have a headache just thinking about having a conversation with them. Story 23. No and yes. No, because I will accompany any woman with a nice smile, attractive figure, and exuberant femininity solely in the bedroom. All of this is surface level, of course. Lately, I have been striving for more than that. Yes, because I learned in my 20s that political factors play a significant part in dating. I have confirmed this with my female friends as well. I am a person of color, and my identity has no political advantage in my country, the United States of America. I do not overly identify with it. I simply acknowledge it. What I noticed when dating women both within and outside this context is that they have an ironic sense of accomplishment. Typically, it is, I did it, but even in my high position, I still feel empty. Existentialism, right? This is normal. Pink Floyd has proven this. Their highs often come with a more refined sense of humor, but their lows are marked by pouting. It is hard work for them to appreciate the moment. I understand. They are often overworked trying to maintain a privileged position, especially if their parents expect a lot from them. So it changed. I tend to date within my social class. It is a different kind of compassion during the struggle of existence that feels more fulfilling in the long run. It is a mutual understanding that the joy of a simple moment is all we will have. The bedroom is more exciting as well. Acknowledging that the illusion of grandeur is real makes it work out better this way. Story 24. I have always and will forever be attracted to kind women who can tolerate my silly antics and my frequent habit of catching her around a corner to say boo and mildly scare her about once a week. I also like old antique gadgets and gizmos. Story 25. When I was a teenager, I was into Lauren Bacall into Have and Have Not and Juliette Lewis in Cape Fear. Juliette Lewis in anything, really. In college, I fell in love with Chloe Sevigny in Kids, Emily Watson in Breaking the Waves, and Parker Posey in The House of Yes. When I saw Fight Club, I thought Helena Bonham Carter was very attractive. That role was over the top enough that even as a teenager I had to laugh at myself, and I experienced the first glimmers of self-awareness. The breakthrough came in my 30s when I rewatched To Have and Have Not and some of those old Juliette Lewis films and realized it had been a lifelong pattern. I was attracted to trauma, mental illness, and self-destructive behavior, and I had been since I was 11, way too young to even understand what I was observing. When I watched To Have and Have Not as a barely pubescent preteen, I didn't realize Lauren Bacall's character was a teenage runaway hitting on a 40-year-old man. To me, they were both grown-ups, but somehow, probably due to good acting, I had an intense emotional reaction to the character. The same with Juliette Lewis in Cape Fear. I was younger and even less mature than the character she portrayed, but on some level I must have sensed something beyond my ability to understand at the time. When I figured this out, It became clear that it had been reflected in all of my real-life romantic involvements up to that point. It was a turning point for me. It didn't change who I was most intensely attracted to, but it did change the choices I made and stopped me from choosing partners who predictably could not deliver what I needed from them, and then feeling guilty for not being able to make it work. Underlying my attraction to those women was an implicit assumption that I needed to be with someone as deeply damaged as I was, but the relationships that followed from that logic were disasters. As I made different choices, I had different experiences, and I started to see people differently. I think that comes to everyone with age. When I see a woman, I am not just looking for commonality and sympathy. I am looking for how we will fit together and what we each bring to the table. That has resulted in much better relationships. Story 26. When I was younger, I wanted an emotional gamer girlfriend who listened to My Chemical Romance and could do kickflips on a skateboard. Now that I am older, I lament the tanned, ethnically ambiguous tomboy best friend I never had, as well as the relationship we would have inevitably found ourselves in. Story 27. I know what I want from a partner in terms of appearance. I have tried to compromise on that, but it does not make me happy. I diet and exercise to attract that type of partner. I recognize that I can be a hypocrite about what I want if I cannot deliver at the same level. Story 28. I don't know for sure if I ever had a strict type because I found lots of women attractive of all kinds. Prior to meeting my wife, I tended to be attracted to tall, athletic women. I am quite tall myself, and I really liked blondes who were extroverted since I am introverted. That was probably the closest I had to a type. I met my wife, and she is 5 feet 4 inches tall, which I know is average and not technically short for a woman, but it is short compared to what I was usually drawn to in the past. She also had brown hair and an hourglass figure. I didn't realize how much I love an hourglass figure until I saw my wife naked. It's incredible. My wife is an introvert as well, though more extroverted than me. I am glad for that because I think being married to an extrovert would be exhausting for me. Anyway, I would say that I married someone who wasn't quite my type, but now she very much is, and I am very attracted to her and grateful that I didn't marry what I thought was my type. Story 29. My preference for weight keeps increasing as I get older. I have an illness, and it appears to be chronic and progressive. Story 30. Younger me wanted a nice smile and no bigger girls. Now, I just want affection and kindness. Loneliness hurts, even if you cannot feel it physically. Now I have 2 cats, but even then, there are times I would like someone to have a conversation with. Story 31. It's funny. I started with very specific standards but slowly realized that was unrealistic. I decided to focus on the values she brings into my life after some disappointing experiences. Then, in my 40s, I found everything I wanted physically and an amazing person with values I treasure. I appreciate my luck every day. Story 32. I used to be a thick woman type, and over the years evolved to preferring an average-build woman with a huge appetite for sex. Story 33. I still like the things I liked before. I just like more things now. In other words, my preferences have not shifted but expanded. Story 34. I used to be into emotional girls and tomboys until I finally dated one. Turns out I was not the only one dating her. Story 35. Physically, not really. In terms of who I am willing to be with, I am much stricter and have many more qualifiers. I am not as willing to overlook things as I used to be. Story 36. Keeps getting heavier. Facial appearance matters less to me over time than whether her buttocks are sufficiently full. I definitely value emotional maturity and pragmatism much more nowadays as well. Story 37. Yes and no. I think when I was young, I was locked into a type just because in my small town there were not a lot of options. I have discovered many more types as I have aged that I would be excited about. Story 38. When I was a teenager, it was just Asian or white women for some reason. I realized that turning down entire races of people is racist because not everyone looks the same, and there is beauty everywhere. I have had a realization that my type is Hispanic women now. Almost all of my crushes in the last 10 years have been Hispanic. It is not something I purposely sought out either. I dislike the spicy Latina fetishization. But it is not a coincidence that they have all been Hispanic, especially if they wear glasses. It affects me. I am open to all types of women, but I do have a preference. Story 39. As a younger man, I was always attracted to older women. Now at 36 years old, I am within the age range of the women I have always been attracted to, but they all seem to be in committed relationships. Story 40. I used to go for intelligent, studious girls when I was in university. Now I prefer attractive, confident women with blonde hair. I think my preference changed because I fell in love with a woman who supports me rather than being angry and refusing to do anything for me. Story 41. I had no idea what my preference was. I remember telling my first girlfriend that I would like a strong, independent woman. But over the years, I noticed I was actually more attracted to the softer, delicate ones. Story 42. When I was in high school, between 14 and 17 years old, the type of girls I wanted were thick, curvy women with an hourglass shape, large breasts, a nice butt, and a pretty face. As I got older, now that I am 25, once you start being with those types of women, you realize it honestly means nothing. What I mean is, at the end of the day, a woman is a woman. No matter how she looks, it doesn't matter. What matters is the way she carries herself, her personality, and her heart. Looks fade, but who she is as a person lasts forever. Now, at this age, I still want that, but it is not mandatory. I am simply okay with a woman with an average body and a good personality, someone to spend the rest of my life with. If I can have a woman with a good personality who is also thick, that is great. If I cannot, that is still great. It is just not a requirement for me anymore. Story 43. Yeah, it went from wanting to be with them just because of looks to actually needing to have things in common and good traits or it won't work. Story 44. I'm 42 now. I've always preferred breasts and that will never change. When I was younger, I was more interested in gym bodies. Now, I much rather have a woman with nice curves. Not saying overweight, but I am not opposed to some hips or stretch marks. I guess my taste has evolved with age. I would much rather be with a 40-year-old who is into a bunch of things than a 19-year-old who spends all day doing squats. Story 45. My type in high school was brunettes with blue eyes, way out of my league. Now, together with the love of my life and our one daughter, who has beautiful brown eyes and a goth style. More importantly, she is an adventurous and playful goofball, which is what I needed in my life and far more important than looks. Story 46. I guess I became more interested in taller girls since they were the ones who gave me more attention in the first place. Story 47. Yes, my first crush was when I was 5, but I have always preferred women between their 30s and 40s. A type? Not really. I just have some very distinct physical and verbal dislikes that override type preference. Story 48. I do not think it has ever changed. I have always liked relatively plain brunette girls with a fun sense of humor. I have never liked blondes, makeup, heels, or anything high maintenance. It is still the same all these years later. Story 49. Other than keeping up with my own age, the common denominator has always been thick is better than slim. Maybe it was a response to the heroin chic trend in the late 1990s and early 2000s, but young teen me never understood why we wanted women to lose all their womanly shape. I stand by this to this day. Story 50. Honestly, my taste in women hasn't changed at all. Still no blue eyes, no blonde hair, preferably brown or black eyes, and the rest is personality and the vibes. There has to be this, it's almost like we've known each other for years vibe. We have to ride the same wave or it just won't do it for me. Story 51. It has expanded. It used to be just blondes, redheads, breasts, and buttocks. Now, it includes anything from goths, dominant mothers, superficial valley girls, dark-skinned, light-skinned, and all shades in between, women in sundresses, tomboys, not feminine boys. I learned that distinction the hard way. Mothers I would like to flirt with, and even a few grandmothers I would like to flirt with. Story 52. When I was young, I was really into the shrinking violet type of personality. The ones that kind of trigger the must-protect reflex and make you feel manly. One of my first girlfriends was that type, and I remember vividly that she asked me out. I stood there dumbstruck for a second, and she followed it up with "Don't hit me," in the saddest voice I ever heard. I dated another girl that I found on a dating site. She was terrified of meeting a stranger in public, and I spent 4 hours calming her down and talking to her after she didn't show at our first date. Eventually, she came around and met me at a Walmart instead of the nice dinner place I had planned. Then we hit it off from there. As I gained more confidence in myself, it became harder to connect with people who were constantly down, critical of themselves, and afraid of connection. Given the chance, I would still date someone like that and try to help or at least be accepting, but my personal tastes have definitely moved on to women who are much more willing to laugh and engage from the start. Story 53. I am 25 and have only two requirements for a woman. 1. Emotional intelligence and self-awareness. 2. She takes care of her health and moves her body regularly. Story 54. Okay, damn. When I was younger, from my mid-teens to late 20s, my type was, above all else, people who could not be there emotionally for me. People who were going through their own issues, consciously or otherwise, and even if they were trying, they could not give me what I wanted. Because what I wanted, I could not get from a lover, even though I kept trying. When I figured myself out, I started being attracted to, and attracting, people who were more spiritually and emotionally mature. Story 55. I've always found myself attracted to men my own age. Looking back on the adult content I liked when I was 18 to 19 makes me feel uncomfortable now at 40. Beyond that, I wouldn't say that my preferences have significantly changed, but rather broadened. I am still attracted to some of the same features, but there are also things that used to be a turnoff that I no longer mind. Story 56. I have always had interests in many things. Growing up, I was often told not to pursue them. Now that I am an adult, I am free from social conventions and peer pressure. Story 57. I was very shy, so my type was a girl who could take me out of my comfort zone. Now I am more outgoing, and my type is a certain introverted girl who happens to be my girlfriend. Story 58. In many ways, when I was young, I just wanted a pretty blonde girlfriend with long hair. As I got older, I still wanted that, but also wanted an emotional, seen, alternative girlfriend. I have dated both physical types of women, and neither was the right fit for me. Now that I am reaching 30, my physical preferences have decreased significantly, but character and personality are very important to me. A girl can be average looking to most people, but if she is genuinely sweet and makes me feel comfortable, I will likely be interested in her. Story 59. Somewhat. I have always liked skinny, petite, and fit girls. In my teens and 20s, I was particularly attracted to blondes. In my 30s, I have become more open to the types of women I find physically attractive. However, all other things being equal, I find shorter women more attractive. Story 60. When I was a kid, I liked women with long, dark, straight hair, between normal and thin, and around 160 centimeters tall. Nowadays, I prefer short black hair between a buzz cut and something like the Cleopatra hairstyle, normal to curvy body types, and as tall as me, which is 180 centimeters. Extra points for having a fringe. Personality-wise, my tastes have not changed. Story 61. I am 35 years old. Everything about me has changed over the years, including my preferences. I might still like large breasts, but their importance has diminished significantly. Story 62. Physically, a lot. A kid of the 1980s, I was all about large breasts and no butt. My first real girlfriend in high school had all butt and no breasts, and it unlocked something. Then I moved to Florida and encountered Latinas in large numbers for the first time. That unleashed a whole new level of attraction. I have grown since then, not nearly as picky, but a nice butt, big, small, fat, fit, whatever, is a requirement. Mentally, not much. I cannot handle an unintelligent woman. It drives me insane. Personality and demeanor still vary widely. Past relationships have taught me that what I like is not necessarily what is good for me, so I try to find a balance. I like wild, aggressive, challenging women. They get me in trouble, though, so I have to avoid conflict zones, so to speak. That said, I need conflict or I get bored and annoyed. Maybe challenge is a better word for it. I cannot be with a woman who goes along with all of my nonsense. Been there, done that, broke her heart and never again. Story 63. Not really. Since finishing high school, I have been interested in women in their mid to late 20s with a beautiful smile and a pleasant demeanor. Story 64. Someone who has a life of their own, does not need me around all the time and lets me live a normal life as well. Story 65. Communication and willingness to work towards common goals became far more important than any physical characteristics. Although large breasts, long healthy hair, and a well-defined clavicle, upper chest, and lower neck area, such as seen in Jolene Blaylock and Tricia Helfer, will always grab my attention. Story 66. Someone emotionally available 100%, but if we are talking about looks, I went from the stereotypical blonde and blue eyes to Hispanic girls. Story 67. Teenage me wanted the really attractive girl. Nowadays, physical appearance is nice, but not as important. I am more drawn to women who are kind and caring. Being able to cook is an advantage. Story 68. I liked tall and smart in my teens when I met my wife. I still like tall and smart in my 40s, and she is still putting up with me. Story 69. My type has changed over the years. Now I don't even look to be with women anymore other than for eye candy and friendships, not sexual. I've been hurt too many times to waste my mental health on them. Story 70. I almost exclusively dated Latina or Asian women because they fit my preferred type. Long black hair, facial shape, monolid eyes. My girlfriend is none of those things, but she is absolutely perfect. I have never felt so seen and accepted before, and that is what really matters. Story 71. I went the opposite way from what many people are saying. My standards are much higher now for who I find attractive. Looking back, I really do not understand what I saw in some of my early crushes. Story 72. I have been attracted to confident middle-aged women who are great teammates for as long as I can remember, and that is what I am still trying to find. Story 73. I am a 48-year-old checking in. In my mid to late 20s, I was considered attractive. I met my wife, who was very attractive. Now, if we ever separated, I would prefer a partner who is moderately attractive and drama-free. Life is too short for nonsense. Story 74. Nowadays, I like girls who are calm and doing something with their lives, such as studying or working, and also someone who brings me peace. Of course, I still like girls who are beautiful and attractive, but it is not as important as it used to be. Story 75. Still a sucker for a pretty blonde lady. I am now accepting being bisexual, so I guess being interested in men too is a change. Story 76. I cannot speak for everyone, but I think it went something like this. Ages 13 to 18. I want the hottest girl. Ages 18 to 23. I want the most fun girl. Ages 23 to 28. I want a girl who is low maintenance. Ages 28 to 32. I want a girl who has her life together. Ages 33 and older. Married a girl who has her life together. By having her life together, I mean lived independently, drove, owned a car, had a real job, studied, traveled, did not have social or domestic drama involving children, ex-partners, or family, did not use substances, had friends, possessed some level of self-awareness, had goals, and had ambitions. Story 77. Went from any woman I found attractive could be my future wife to getting the ick when I notice something I do not like. I used to think women were corny for doing that, but it is beginning to happen more and more. Physically, nothing has changed though. If I find them attractive, it is enough for me to go up and talk to them, and if I am interested, I will try to pursue a romantic relationship. Story 78. I do not know what my type is, I will be honest. I have never had an offline relationship, so I just have a vague idea of what I would like in a partner. Story 79. I was into more alternative, metalhead, and goth-type girls in high school. My first real girlfriend fit this style, and she also had long, naturally curly dark hair. Every girl I've been with since, except one blonde, had long curly hair. 21 years of that time has been with my wife. I eased off on the alternative style and turned to low or no makeup, t-shirt and jeans type girls, if that makes any sense. Story 80. When I was younger, I liked curvy women with large breasts, narrow waists, and round hips. If she was a bit bigger, that was fine. After dating such a girl for a while and watching her gain a lot of weight, I am done with that. Now, petite, shapely girls are my preference. Story 81. Younger me wanted blonde, tanned, with large breasts, which was pretty standard for 14-year-old boys of the time, I suppose. These days, alternative, gothic, punk, tomboy, and other non-traditional types draw me in. Sounds backwards, but normal people are so boring. Story 82. Younger me was all about skinnier ladies, redheads preferably. But for a while, Mexican women were just my thing. In my 30s, I went for thinner white women with curvy figures, and now in my 40s, I am head over heels for my wife. I have watched her body change with age and motherhood. More weight and curves. Some gray hairs, wrinkles, and crow's feet from smiles over the years. She is still the most beautiful woman I have ever met, and I am still wildly attracted to her. The physical affection is not reciprocated, but we cannot have it all. I still love that woman to pieces. Story 83. My type has been refined. For example, nowadays I know that I prefer an ethnic woman because I don't fit the white male mold perfectly due to my own ethnic background and find average white women boring to be around. I need to be accepting of a wider range of body types than I was originally interested in because Korean women are built differently than Cajun women, who are built differently than Puerto Rican women. Also, she needs to have a steady job with a good income and either a degree or her own business, because I am not being anybody's financial supporter. I can be fine on my own, but I would rather build up a strong financial peace of mind. I am not quite as picky about them being a nerd anymore, but I prefer geeks with good senses of humor and the ability to give and receive jokes. Originally, I liked the demure ones until I actually dated enough of those. Now I am good. Bonus points if she has an accent. I was conservative as a child but would not consider dating someone with those views now. I believe strongly in everyone having the same rights and in the government staying out of people's business. You cannot really believe that and support authoritarianism at the same time. Story 84. Over time, my type changed to my wife. When you love someone deeply, that becomes your type, regardless of what your younger self thought. Story 85. I used to be attracted to alternative girls. I still am, but now I am also really into women who look like librarians. I have no idea how it happened. Story 86. What I like has become clearer as I have gotten older, whereas in my 20s it was a much more general preference. Story 87. I have never really typecast myself. I am lucky enough to be blessed with a nerdy, curvy redhead for a wife, and that works fine for me. Story 88. I used to think I was attracted to large breasts. Then I slept with a woman who had small breasts but long, thick nipples. At that moment, I realized I am not attracted to breasts, but to nipples. Story 89. I was told growing up that I should want a docile, agreeable, submissive woman. But when I grew up and actually talked to women, I discovered that I liked the opposite. Aggressive but not insane, opinionated but open-minded, with her own sense of self, not relying on me to define it for her. Story 90. They all look good to me. About 70% of the women I see are attractive, so you cannot really miss when it comes to physical appearance. The mental and emotional aspects are what I focus on more now. Story 91. I might get criticized for this, but age-wise, my preference is about the same, 18 to 27. I just want someone nice, trustworthy, loyal, and with similar interests. I don't like heavy-set individuals, and when I say that, I don't mean to sound offensive. There is nothing wrong with some curves and a little tummy, but when we start talking about a beer gut or bigger, I'm just not attracted. Also, I am a 26-year-old male in case that matters. Story 92. Asians. I am a white man and I used to think they all looked the same until I moved to Asia. Now I have a strong attraction to Asian people. Story 93. When I was younger, I only wanted to meet people my own age, in my 20s and early 30s. Now that I am approaching 40, I suddenly find younger people more attractive, and I am less interested in people my age. I guess that is normal. People who are 24 to 36 and are athletic and fit are at the peak of their youth and good looks as human beings. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.